And talk about rock and roll again. Of course, 19 picks with King, a character loyalist. 1 pick with Gigas. So, we might see that every now and then, but it's gonna be once in a blue moon.
Yeah, he brought out his Gigas against Maru. He wasn't as successful. I think he will be sticking with King this time. But the King, the play style of this King that we're seeing this past few days has been very nothing short of amazing. We've seen rolling death cradles. We've seen a lot of multi throws. I mean, this is really spectacular King that we're talking about.
Oh, did you see that tech? The twin tech there? They're doing the same hand gestures at the same time, wearing masks, keeping safe. But yeah, Rock has definitely been such an explosive force on the field. The numbers may not dictate the entire story, but he's been making everyone sweat with this King. His King is super unpredictable at times as well. It's like, hey, you know what? You broke my RDC. Well, welcome to the Atlas Hammer. I'll send you to space.
And also the STF that he has been whipping out these past few days. And of course, not being biased or anything, but I already mentioned that for me, rock and roll is the dark horse of this conference, and I'm really looking forward to witnessing more matches of rock and roll.
And again, that's an interesting contrast to Hapon, as Hapon has always been such a stable force. Even in his first conference of the Nationals, the moment he got in, we could already tell that he's a very seasoned player, a veteran of the scene, and not shying away from the big stage. And he's remained the same ever since. Meanwhile, when you look at rock and roll, he's always changing up his tech. He's always trying out something crazy. Is he gonna rob Burning Knuckle? Is he gonna go for an exploder? Who knows? Rock and roll knows.
I mean, Hapon has proven himself numerous times in the Nationals. We've seen him in very tight spots, which he was able to pull through, and that is something very wonderful to witness. And being the opponent to face rock and roll right now, the type of Tekken that we want to see in both athletes are really up here.
Exactly, and that's just the basically the story of the Nationals. As I mentioned, this is one of the most competitive conferences we've had, and everyone here is on an elite level, and anyone on a given day can beat basically anyone else. So that just makes it a lot spicier.
True, and that is what makes exactly, that is what makes things more exciting, and seeing that our athletes were able to adapt, they were able to strategize, they were able to tweak their play styles in order to fit the online environment is already a feat that we have to commend them for.
And talking about that, we all know Hapon as a lab monster, so rock and roll definitely has to bring out something, a bit more on the crazier side, just to throw him off guard, because like I mentioned, Hapon is standing on a very, very strong foundation of experience and skill, basically. Oh, okay.
There you go. See, I was waiting for the playoffs for him to bring out his Eddie, but then again, ito na yung hinihintay ko, ito na yung hinihintay natin. First time in the second season of the Tekken Conference, we are going to see Hapon's Eddie.
And how is rock and roll gonna adjust to this? I feel like Rock wasn't really expecting this, because Hapon hasn't showed this up until now. But of course, the Rainmaker is here, and hopefully Hapon has an umbrella to keep himself safe.
Keep himself safe and dry. See how the Eddie ng Pinas will be able to fare against the entire church of rock and roll.
Exactly, and of course he is kind enough to send rock and roll first class tickets to the rodeo, and rock and roll happily obliged. But this time Hapon really working with his life lead here, not really going for anything too risky, and such a sharp eye to break that giant swing as well.
Very keen indeed of Hapon, wasn't able to punish that accordingly, wasted the blue stuff, and there you go, spilled it on the floor. Hapon backing out. And he does have that huge life advantage. He doesn't need to gamble anyway.
Exactly, 17 seconds left on the clock, and it feels like the round just passed us in the blink of an eye here. Once again, Hapon, very stable, very, very calculated, and he knows his distances, making rock and roll with such a crucial move.
Yes, and objectively, that was Hapon's round. That entire round was purely Hapon. So there were a lot of errors that rock and roll was able to commit. But then again, let's see how he would adjust in the second round.
And you saw that micro duck there by Hapon here, that flash duck just to avoid the grab mix-up. But oh, waking up with a launcher is Hapon, making daring moves on Rock and Roll as well, showing that Rock and Roll isn't the only one who can party, and a party at the rodeo once more.
A good rodeo throw there from Hapon, and again he has the huge life advantage, and the blue stuff again spilled on the floor. What a waste! How will Rock and Roll get up from this situation?
And you know what they say, Rock 316, don't ever count me out. Still a lot around to play here, but Hapon being super kosher about his timing, throwing off Rock and Roll.
And again with an escape from the giant swing, Hapon really just going on a party mode.
Exactly.
Nice combo there.
Not wasting any of his dance moves on Rock and Roll, but Rock and Roll still trying to fight back. The Black Bomb is going to connect, but those frames aren't be collected. This time around, the rodeo did connect, but Hapon still sneaking that low there to close it off.
And of course, Hapon taking all 3 rounds to himself, not leaving any for Rock and Roll. And this actually makes a strong statement, especially if it's the first match and you dominate the entire thing like that. It has this effect on your opponent. So
Yeah.
I think Tekken is also a game of psychology. If you can shake the mental state your opponent is in, that is actually an advantage for you.
And as you mentioned, like just a testament of how few times these players run into in a tournament setting, that can really maybe even get players like them have nerves, you know. And that really showed with Rock and Roll. Rock and Roll didn't look too stable there. A lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of spilled blue stuff. The judgment of the range wasn't there for him either. And Hapon just basically capitalized on all these mistakes and just shut him out. So now the challenge for Rock and Roll is, am I gonna bounce back with my king? Am I gonna adjust, or am I just gonna outright throw him out the window for now, bring the Gigas in, maybe bring the Armor King in, and maybe every other surprise he has under his sleeve?
True, and that is textbook art of war. Do not commit a mistake, and then as a form of offense, you have to wait for your opponent to commit his mistakes and capitalize on it. And that is exactly what Hapon did in that match. Seeing how unfortunate the judgments of Rock and Roll turned out, I think he's taking his time now to recalculate his strategy and see other options for him to be able to make a comeback for the second match.
On paper, though, that King does have great range to find the backdashing Eddie, especially with that full crouch DF2. Although unsafe, it is still a great tool to just fish someone out. But Hapon, once again, not really presenting any breathing room for Rock and Roll here. So yeah, maybe we'll see a more defensive Rock, which we haven't really seen from these previous episodes, Ron.
True, that is something that we are yet to see. Same here. I would like to see a more defensive Rock and Roll. Maybe we can see that in this match. Maybe not. I mean, you don't want to be that much defensive against Hapon, especially if he's using his Eddie.
Exactly. And I feel like if he brought out the Armor King, I think the Armor King would be a better matchup for the Eddie, because he can always down back 2-4 the relaxed stance or the handstand. But again, at this level of competition, it's just not that simple, you know. It's not X will beat Y or vice versa. You just have to take into account the timings, the tendencies, and just the player themselves.
Yes, I strongly agree. I mean, as what you said earlier, on paper, yes, Armor King does have a good chance against Eddie. But then again, this is Hapon and Rock and Roll we're talking about. These two are no stranger against each other. Maybe Rock and Roll knows something that we do not.
Exactly, and Hapon, is that a life deficit here? Oh, to the wall, into the wall grab. Big damage from the big knee to the face.
Of course, this is the first round of Rock and Roll for this series. Is he going for the RDC? No, he's not.
And you know what? Maybe Rock and Roll just didn't like the atmosphere of the previous stage. Maybe he needed an audience. Maybe he needed the energy from the crowd, because like all wrestlers, they want to put on a show.
Yeah, especially in this type of environment. If he's playing outside of the studio, maybe he missed that environment where we have all those audiences in the arena, and this is exactly what he needs. And just like that, he takes the second round.
Exactly, hitting him with a tech there, the cross up. Hapon couldn't do anything about that. And these have been two quick rounds, but once again, Hapon inclining Rock and Roll to visit the rodeo.
Both sides of 3+4, those field kicks find their home in the face of a king here.
Oh, and Rock and Roll keeping his defense solid here, but getting hit by the slide. The mix-up's not gonna count. He finishes the string, and Hapon, super aware of that, not falling for the delay trap.
He does know, and you know, he is not in a position to gamble at that point. And no, he did not take the risk. He played it safe, and he was able to save the third round.
Exactly, and Hapon with these backdashes have been keeping Rock and Roll at tip range for most of his moves. Goes for the rodeo again. Rock and Roll has to be super careful about this because that's quite a lot of health being lost to that throw alone.
To be honest, I've already lost count of how many times Rock and Roll has fell for the rodeo. And I think Hapon is on the brink of taking the 4th round. We are going to the final round, and Hapon still has a chance to get those sweet 3 points.
And maybe Raid Boss Hapon is in full swing right now, but Rock and Roll denies that. It's like, you know what, I'm getting tired of that. Full crouch DF2 whiffing as well. Hapon keeping his movement super sharp here, being super erratic on the stage.
Actually, the fact that, you know, Eddie being a very, not being able to sidestep that much, but Axis is his friend. Second, that's exactly what I was talking about. It's really weird. The angles of those attacks, even with the punishes, it's kind of hard to, you know, predict how to, you know, go against Eddie at this point.
Exactly, and Hapon's just partying right now. That could be it. It is. Look at all that damage from the rodeo, and I think Rock and Roll has to reconsider his options there. I think he has to kind of look back and, you know, maybe familiarize himself with the rodeo. But once again, congratulations to Happy Feet Emperors Hapon for being super dominant in these last 2 matches.